What's up, everybody? Appreciate you for coming through. It is Sideline to Sideline. No, it's not on the ball, but you still got me and Guardy 3. I mean, you already know what it is. We're going to get you ready for Thursday Night Football, which, if you are a Philly sports fan, you have the Phillies tonight and the Eagles. A lot of decisions need to be made in your household. Oops, sorry. But, Brett and I, we're Patriots and Packers fans, so we don't have to make that decision. Look, there's a lot that we have to get into around the NFL, some news that happened today, yesterday we'll talk about. We'll look back at last week's, biggest games and, kind of break them down, talk about in this topsy-turvy league, who exactly are the best teams in the league? Because there's some surprises up there with some records, but are they actually the top-tier teams in the league? And then we'll get you ready for Thursday Night Football, Eagles and the Giants. You already know how Brent and I do it, so make sure you come through, get in the chat, let us know how you feel. If there's a team you want to talk about, put them in there. We'll talk about them. But before we get into all that, Brett, not guarding the 2, he's guarding the 3. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited. Packers football is back this week. Tonight, We're just hoping that the Brewers take it home and move on. So hopefully it's going to be a great night and a great week for Wisconsin sports. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Look, playoffs everywhere, preseason NFL, sports fans are definitely tapped in. But let's go ahead and start with some news and notes around the NFL. So going back to Monday night, Chiefs and the Jaguars. A lot was talked about Chris Jones on that Trevor Lawrence touchdown, where he wasn't exactly Albert Hainsworth, but, effort-wise, it wasn't too far off. So Chris Jones came out and obviously said the lack of pursuit was a teaching point. Kind of interesting to say when you are, 30-something years old and been in the league a while, but hey, it's a teaching point. What did you think about the play? Were you as surprised for somebody like a Chris Jones to kind of just give up on a play that if he kept up with his pursuit, maybe could have stopped Trevor Lawrence from scoring? Never know.
I don't even say. I think that if he just straight up, rushes the passer, he could probably still get to Trevor Lawrence while he's on the ground or, still down. Yeah, he just gave up on that play. And teaching point is wild. Like, big dog, you're 31 years old. You can't teach effort, and you shouldn't have to sit there playing, a teaching point. You shouldn't have to teach you effort at this point. Like, a little bit of effort, whether it's, just rushing the passer to, maybe make sure he stays on the ground or seeing he's escaping and trying to get him, like, would have went a long way. I don't buy that. I really don't.
So he also said that he thought Trevor was down. He thought they'd gotten him down on the ground, so I guess that's why he stopped. Even so, didn't hear a whistle. Well, the rule is play until a whistle. Chris Jones didn't do that.
Say there's no whistle, so I don't even know why he would bother, stopping.
Right.
Like you just said, and that's what I was just about to say. Play till the whistle. You don't hear a whistle blowing this stuff dead. You keep playing on. And guess what? There was no whistle, so there was no reason to stop. So he just gave up on the play, and these just sound like a lot of excuses. That we shouldn't have to have these quote-unquote teaching moments when it comes to effort for a 31-year-old pass rusher. Come on now.
Yep. Absolutely. But hey, that's what he said. He said it won't happen again, which I feel like we're probably inclined to believe him, I guess. But if it does happen again, we'll point back to this and say, well, clearly it wasn't a teaching moment because you failed yet again. But moving into other news, the Bengals make a trade after Jake Browning, got the opportunity post Burrow injury, but Browning had issues with turnovers and with 8 interceptions in the limited amount of games he played. They go out and get Joe Flacco from the Browns, who'd been benched or replaced by Dylan Gabriel. And I know Jamar Chase has said the move signals the team, I guess, investing in the season by going out and getting a Flacco, and gives the team hope, is what apparently Cincinnati's whole thing is. Flacco's going to give them hope. How much impact does Joe Flacco make on this offense? Do we feel like in a division where, yeah, the Steelers are leading it, but they're not necessarily some runaway juggernaut, is Flacco the type of quarterback that can keep the Bengals kind of within arm's length, or maybe even win the AFC North?
No, he isn't. He didn't get benched because the Browns wanted to move in a different direction per se. I would think that the Browns would have loved to have Joe Flacco at least be serviceable for a couple more weeks and let the rookies, soak up some more, information and develop a little bit more on the sidelines. But they cut him because he just was that bad. Like, he was not a good quarterback. He wasn't pushing the ball down the field. He has the mobility of a statue, and that's kind of an insult to statues everywhere. Like,
yep.
It's just over for Joe Flacco. Maybe there's an idea that he's going to go out, Cincinnati and start, throwing bombs, but I just don't buy it. He literally went from the second worst offensive line in the league to the worst. I think he's just going to go to Cincinnati and get killed. So I respect what Joe Flacco has done in his career and for the game, but I think it's just over at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see, I guess, what he does this week. If he can bring some energy to that offense, that would obviously make it a better move for Cincinnati. But if he goes out there and he looks, like you said, a statue, getting hit, can't really release it, wide receivers can't run their routes because of the pressure on the offensive line, then it's just kind of more signs of a lost season. And what Joe Burrow can maybe optimistically be available in December, that's obviously going to be hinged on the fact that the Bengals have to be contending in December. At least you would think so. Like, you would think if they're out of it, clearly they're not going to make Burrow play this year in December for like no reason. So if Flacco can do that, cool. I'm with you. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to buy stock into the Bengals, hanging around or winning the division, even though Vegas says the Ravens are still the favorite, which, sure, I guess that's, if you want to throw some money down on that, you feel free to do so. But it's a weird division to really kind of look at. Yeah, the Steelers have the best record in the division, but they have their own problems offensively. Can't really trust their game plan or anything like that. And then defensively, they're okay, but I don't think they're world beaters in any way. And, the Ravens have their own issues with injuries, but their level of play hasn't been up to par all season. And then the Browns are now going through this transition between the quarterbacks and everything. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
The division might take 9 wins to win it, for all we know.
Say, Aaron Rodgers winning the division. Let's go.
Look, it would definitely help Tomlin, even though I don't think his job should be necessarily in jeopardy like that. But if he's able to win the division this year with Rodgers, DK Metcalf, a running game that's hasn't really been there, and the defense as is, you gotta give him credit for that. Now, obviously, he'd have to win a playoff game, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's such a weird division in a weird season. Let's see what other news was there. Actually, it's kind of all the news I had. I think we're kind of caught up. Oh, well, I guess sticking with the Browns, Shador comes out and says, wherever the Kevin Stefanski decides to put him for his role, he's fine with it. Because obviously with Flacco gone, it was seen that Shador would be the backup. Maybe not, because now there's some talk maybe Bailey Zappi will be the backup. Are the Browns making a mistake not putting Shador 2? Do you feel like if Bailey Zappi is the backup, it's the right decision? And maybe has Shador turned the corner by talking about whatever the Browns do with him, he's okay with it. Seems like a change in tone for him. Maybe he's learning.
You know what's funny? I don't necessarily think it's a mistake. It's one of those things, right, with Shador that we don't know how ready he is. Because on one preseason game, he looked very ready. The last preseason game, he didn't look ready at all. So that's going to be my concern and kind of questions with him, right? Is he ready? Because if he's not ready, and if he's more closer to the player that we saw in that last preseason game with him, then it's not the wrong call to bring up Bailey Zappi. If that was just an off game, he's closer to the player that he was in that first preseason game, maybe he should be quarterback too. But I'm saying that to say this. I don't think it's the wrong call to bring up Bailey Zappi because it's really simple. Maybe Shador just isn't ready quite yet for real game reps against the number one defense. If he has to step in and play, maybe he's just not ready for that. And I think that's okay. You don't want to throw him out there and damage his confidence. I just think people are trying to rush the Shador decision a little too quickly. Let him sit on the bench however long. Maybe it's the entire year. That's fine. How many fifth-round picks sit on the bench? A decent amount of quarterbacks drafted. Ride the pine that first year. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's perfectly fine, whatever they decide to do. And guess what? If he continues to, put his head down, put in the work, put the team first, I have no doubt that he probably does get a chance at some point during the year. Maybe it's week 15, 16, 17. They clearly like Dylan Gabriel better. And
Gabriel played well enough to get another start.
No, absolutely. So I'm okay with them putting Zappi as the backup if they think Shador's not ready yet. But if Shador keeps, acting like he has been lately, then I have no doubt that he's going to get a chance before the year ends because, I've really liked his answers and his attitude lately.
Exactly. Like, they turned to Gabriel because, like I said, he's been prepared for this. They obviously felt confident in going to him. And you look at that Minnesota game, that final drive, he made some throws to get him down the field. And even the throw to Judy was a smart decision to try to get a little bit closer. And, Judy just came up short getting out of bounds. But it showed kind of good awareness from Gabriel to even recognize that as the throw to make there instead of standing back there, tapping the football, letting more clock run off. And then he only gets one shot, and then that was going to be the end of the game. He tried to play for, the second play. I think that would have been inside the 20 at that point, which gives you a lot more options on getting into the end zone. So, yeah, I agree with you, Gene. Like, the Shador stuff does need to quiet down, but this is the kind of the problem that some teams run into with backup quarterbacks and why some teams just, go to backup quarterbacks and have them sitting around that the fan base doesn't necessarily get behind. This is what you run into. Because it's like every game, you have people who analyze Gabriel to the T, but then they're like, yeah, that's all well and good, but Shador needs to be starting. Like, nothing to back it up. They just feel that way. And if you're Dylan Gabriel, I'm sure, hopefully he's not listening to any of that noise or anything, but it's got to be annoying that you went over to London in your first game. You almost pulled out a win, but people want the third string quarterback, by the way, to be the starter. It's ridiculous. But that's how the NFL rolls.
No, absolutely. And not even just like be the third string starter, right? Like he definitely shouldn't be starting. Like Dylan Gabriel definitely earned a nice leash after that impressive performance against the Vikings. He definitely still had some things to work on, but the fact of the matter, he played as well as he did. Yeah, he is definitely QB1 going forward for at least the next like maybe 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, the operation looked crisp with them.
Said, but don't worry, Shedeur will get his chance. I think he will. I think he'll be just fine. I think this year, at some point, you will see Shedeur get his chance.
And for all y'all Shedeur fans, you better hope that first start, he looks good to go. Because if he goes out there and looks like a deer in headlights, the people who didn't want Shedeur in Cleveland or whatever, they're going to come out of the woodwork like full, like 100-fold to let you know that Shedeur, this is why he's a 5th-round picker and all that. So, like I said, when he does get his opportunity, hope he does well. But I hope Dylan Gabriel continues to string together good starts and, he earns the starting job. That would probably be best for Cleveland, let's be honest. But let's go ahead and get into some of the games from last week that definitely caught our attention. Jory, if you're still in here, we're going to start with your squad because I think for most NFL fans, might have been the oddest ending to a football game you've ever seen, where Cam Ward makes a great throw to Ridley, momentum's on their side, then you throw a pick in the red zone inside the 5. What was it? Demerson, I believe, picks it off. He goes to the ground. Could have stayed down. Cardinals win. He decides to get up to return it, probably looking to get a pick 6. I feel like he knocked the ball away from himself by stumbling. Then you have Cardinals players who run over, kick it around, and shout out to Tyler Lockett for staying in the area. He jumps on it in the end zone for a touchdown, which then leads to the comeback with Joey Slye kicking his, I believe the stat was his first game-winning field goal inside of 2 minutes left on the clock, which is kind of crazy when you think about how long Slye's been in the league. But what were your thoughts in this game? What does it say about the Cardinals as a team? Because obviously the Gannon stuff, you can work that into your kind of review of it. But what does it say about the Cardinals as a team? And what about the Titans did you see that could be encouraging from this win?
So for the Cardinals, I just think it almost feels like their season just kind of ended. And I know that's premature to say, but this is just very deja vu of what we saw last year with the Chicago Bears, where it took one demoralizing loss and everything unraveled after.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to start another trend like that. I maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're going to see something similar to what we saw with Chicago, that one loss like that can truly change a season. And I think things are going to start to unravel with Arizona from here. I just don't know how you bounce back from that, because that was just absurd.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that a positive, game for Tennessee. They won.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly were the victors, but I wouldn't really call that a positive game from Tennessee. There wasn't a lot of positive takeaways. It wasn't they didn't play a good game. Arizona just kind of handed them the game on a silver platter with, two of the stupidest mistakes you'll ever seen. I'll always say this, right? Cam Ward did show a lot of great flashes as to why he was the number 1 pick, and he's going to be a special talent when they get real receivers and a real head coach around him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out on the Tennessee Titans being a great team in the future. I'm just out on them being an even decent team with Brian Callahan on the sideline. So, like I said, I was impressed by Cam Ward. I think Jeffrey Simmons might have one of the quickest get-offs for a defensive tackle in the game. They got some serious skill on the defensive line, but yeah, that almost didn't feel like a win where I'm overwhelmingly, higher on the Titans going forward. That just felt like, all right, well, the Cardinals just kind of gave you one. Let's see if you can bounce, parlay that into some momentum here.
Yeah, I agree. Look, Simmons, who, slimmed down a bit, it looks like it's working for him perfectly. He's getting off the ball really well. He had a sack and a half in this game. So that's obviously he's obviously the star of the defense and helps them with his ability to get pressure after the quarterback. I thought it was a good game for Ridley. 5 catches, 131 yards, and he's had some drops and some rough play early on in this year. I feel like it's good for him. Maybe Ward to Ridley can become a connection that they, can rely on a little bit going forward, and maybe in some tough spots, Ridley can, come through and make big catches for Cam Ward. And for Arizona, look, it's when you're a team that is struggling as much as the Cardinals have with Kyler Murray, these are just games that you just lose. And what's going on, Anthony? It's an interesting take that we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. But yeah, that's just the game you find a way to lose. And look, Kyler Murray said after might have been the worst loss of his career. And it very well might have been, with the opportunities they had to close that game out, and they failed at each one of those instances. Then, yeah. And in an NFC West that's maybe better than people thought, the Cardinals can't lose too many games because they're going to lose ground. And now you're relying on the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers to all kind of fall off simultaneously while you still have to win games. And like you said, they may be doomed already, and we're only in week 6. That's tough. And Kyler Murray was 23 for 31, 220, but no touchdowns, no interceptions, which is good. But yeah, he just has to do better. Marvin Harrison almost had 100 yards receiving. That's good, because those two haven't necessarily been on the same page a lot since Harrison's been in Arizona. We'll see. We'll see how the Cardinals come back from this. Like, if the Cardinals completely tank their season, we'll say this is the week that the bottom just fell out. But if they turn around, this just becomes a minor footnote on their season.
Say another guy I want to point out, just it might be over for Geno Smith. It really just might be over for him.
Yeah.
He was a guy last year that, was really good at the deep ball, and he had a really live arm and could throw a lot of really good shots up the seams and really press the defense downfield. But I don't see it anymore. It's one of those things, right, where it's those same deep throws, those same throws up the seams, those same deep shots. They just seem to have a little less zip on it. Defenders are able to react to them now. I think if Geno can play one more week, I wouldn't be shocked if, the Raiders are already looking to draft a quarterback next year.
They got Kenny Pickett in the building.
I
actually forgot he was out there. I had to look it up a couple of days ago. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, Geno just can't be this bad for much longer. And I was like, who's the backup? And I was like, oh, Kenny Pickett. I forgot all about that trade and everything. But you wanted to root for Geno a couple of years ago with his, line about the league tried to whatever on him and he didn't pick up or whatever. I can't remember the line anymore because the play just has dipped since then. And now it's this is the Geno that struggled in New York and has kind of just been that guy since he's left. So, and Pete Carroll, look, it's his first season there. He's obviously trying to establish something, so he brought in a guy that he was comfortable with. Now you might have to make that decision and move on.
Say Geno, hey, yeah. I still use that Geno one-liner when I'm struggling in 2K and all of a sudden start getting out in the fourth quarter. They tried to write me off, but I didn't write back.
That's the line. It's a good line, but you kind of wish that the play kind of backed it up. So, hey, look, maybe Gino turns it around. He has another one-liner for us. Who knows?
My question is, how much longer are the Dolphins coaching staff going to actually be there? Because I'm sorry, you just can't lose the fashion you did to the Panthers.
Right. And that's an interesting game because they had a lead. They seemed like they were in control. And then the second half, they just turned it off. And, Carolina, shout out to Carolina for getting the win. This is now probably their second improbable win. The first one was the complete dismantling of the Falcons. And now you beat a Dolphins team that, the Dolphins are bad, but Panthers are coming off a blowout loss of their own to New England. So you kind of thought, how do they bounce back from that? And all they do is they go and beat the Dolphins, who have a lot of pressure on that same coaching staff, to win.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, it's the way you lose too, right? If Ted McMillan just went nuts, that could be one thing, but you just got gashed on the ground by Rico Dowdle.
Yep.
How do you let that happen? I think Rico's a great platoon back, but I never saw him having a game like he did yesterday. That was almost that was a miniature version of the Jonas Gray game. That was just pure insanity.
Yeah. Jonas Gray, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, these guys who just have these crazy games out of nowhere.
I did a double take.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. Well, yeah, keep going.
No, I had to do a double take on that because I'm looking at the box score, okay, Bryce Young threw for 108 yards or 198 yards, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Rico Dowdle ran for 206 yards. Rico Dowdle did what? It's just a Dolphins team that they just got to get a lot tougher up front. They just got to get a lot tougher. They just need a new culture. It's just over.
Yeah. Because, you see the Panthers score 27, you're like, maybe Bryce Young had a really good game, but you wouldn't have expected Rico Dowdle to be the reason why you lose. And Tua didn't even have a bad game, which is even crazier. He threw 3 touchdowns. He was really efficient, 27 for 36, 256. Now the Dolphins couldn't run the ball, which has been an issue with them a lot of this season. But see, we just talked about this, Anthony.
He might not be ready for live action. The last time we saw him, he didn't look ready at all for live action. And
Gabriel was drafted 2 rounds before him. Gabriel was going to get the first opportunity. That was a given.
Like I said, that first preseason game, he looked ready to be a backup. In the second preseason game, he didn't look even close ready to be a backup. So, I'm willing to give the Browns some benefit of the doubt here because this isn't preseason defenses anymore. Maybe he's not ready for regular season action against regular season defenses right now. That's okay.
Right. All right. Let's talk about. Well, Anthony would bring up the Jags and the Chiefs. We did talk about the Chris Jones part of it. So here's where I'm conflicted when I look at this game. We saw a Chiefs team that was scuffling. Saw a report Browns are still paying 8 quarterbacks. They are.
Yep.
One day it's going to be a trivia question on Jeopardy, name all 8 quarterbacks, and it's going to be interesting. I'd have to look it up, but they're paying Pickett, obviously Sanders, Gabriel. They're still playing Flacco since they traded him, I think.
Say DTR, Zappy.
Yeah. That's 6. And then Watson is still getting paid, which that's 7. And then 8. Well, there you go. I mean, 7 out of 8, but yeah, they're paying a lot.
It was Kenny Pickett.
I thought I said him. I might not have said Sanders. So yeah, that Sanders or Pickett is the 8th. So yeah, they are absolutely paying 8 quarterbacks. It's they have made a mess of the quarterback situation over the past few drafts and years.
The Jaguars are such an interesting team.
Oh, because that's the 8th one. We didn't say Zappy.
Yeah, the Jaguars are an interesting team because I'm not sure what they're doing is sustainable right now. And the part that I'm concerned about with them is the turnovers they're forcing. Like, you have forced 14 turnovers through, 5 games?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's sustainable. So, if this is a very boomer bust defense that has been relying on the turnover differential, and I still think, they've been doing great. I'm not taking anything away from them. I think I'm just slightly concerned if those turnovers stop coming, then what does their defense look like at that point? But I do want to give all credit in the world to one guy manning the middle of that defense. Devin Lloyd is such a stud. He's in there running for DPOY, and it's well deserved.
Yeah. Pickett is on Vegas.
They're still paying him.
Yeah, they're still
paying him and Jameis.
Oh yeah, they are like it's such a mess. I mean, look for the Jags. Upcoming games, they have the Seahawks, the Rams, the Raiders. Okay, but Texans, who we'll see what the Texans look like after their game against Baltimore. Chargers are all within the next 5 weeks, so we'll see what that defense does against those teams. Like I said, the Chiefs were a team that were coming in with some momentum after their win over the Ravens, and the Jags, hung around and won it late. So it's obviously an impressive win for them. But now for the Chiefs, it's like you looked great against Baltimore, but now what we know about Baltimore, that kind of diminishes a bit of their performance there. But then you turn around and lose the way you do to the Jags. Are they kind of just back to where we thought they were a couple of weeks ago, where we were like, someone's just off. Offensively, defensively, it's just not looking like it has the past few years. And look, at some point, dynasties have to kind of end. But yeah, like, are the Chiefs kind of back to where they were square one?
I think they'll start picking it up soon. I believe that they're kind of through the hardest part of their schedule. They really got front-loaded with a lot of tough games. But I think this is where they start picking it up. You're going to get Xavier Worthy back, and that's obviously huge. You need somebody who can consistently space the field. They can, stretch the field. You need your wide receiver one back. So I think they'll pick it up. I still think this is at least a wild card team, and if they get into the playoffs, they're always dangerous. But yeah, I don't think it's an end. I just think this is more of a turbulence. But I think they'll be fine.
That's an interesting statement to make. I mean, I feel like it's probably early to say that about Worthy. We'll see. Because look, he's gonna have to be the guy to kind of get the offense going. Hollywood Brown can only do so much. Juju Smith-Schuster, we already know he's not that kind of game-breaking wide receiver. Travis Kelce, looking how he looks, a lot's going to be dependent upon Worthy and Rice, obviously. And Worthy is dealing with the injury or whatever, but him and Rice, especially when Rice comes back, like, those two are going to have to create some explosive plays for the Chiefs. And you talk about their schedule, their next few weeks, the Lions, the Raiders, the Commanders, they have a little 3-game homestand, which, get some home cooking. Then you have the Bills, Broncos, Colts. It's an interesting stretch for the Chiefs. I think a lot of people thought Noah Bray was going to.
I I never saw that with Noah Gray. It's one of those things, like, he seems like he's a perfectly fine backup tight end, but never really saw him as anything besides that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even sure if he'll ever be like a quality, starting tight end. I just think he's a serviceable backup.
Well, I think the hope for some was with Kelsey kind of going through this where he starts off slow. I felt like people were thinking out of necessity, Noah Gray would have to kind of pick it up at least early on until Kelsey turns it on later in the year. And it hasn't really materialized, but yeah, I agree. Like, Noah Gray's probably going to be a tight end too, but you can't expect him to be the guy. So John's asking, are the Colts fool's gold? So I think this goes to a question I do have. Who are the top teams in the AFC? Like, if you had to do top 5 teams in the AFC, one, would the Colts fall in your top 5? And where in your top 5 are they?
I think that, if we're doing just based on this season, they have to be in your top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge. Like, literally, when we're talking top 5 in the AFC right now,
mm-hmm.
It's super tough. But yeah, the Colts definitely have to be on there. Colts, Bills. Ironically, I think there's a great argument for your Patriots coming off that win in Buffalo,
mm-hmm.
Denver Broncos, Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, it's a really weird list through the first 5 weeks, but it almost feels like those are probably the top 5 teams in the AFC through the first 5 weeks. Not in name them in order, but.
Mm-hmm. So John is kind of calling into question their wins. Raiders, Dolphins, Titans, and then the win against Denver. Looking at the Colts, their schedule.
I thought it said Denver. Did I not say? I think I said Denver.
Yeah.
I said Denver.
The Cardinals, they have to go to the Chargers. They have the Titans, the Steelers, Falcons, Chiefs in their upcoming weeks.
Is there a way the Texans can get back? Sure, protect C.J. Stroud against a real football team that isn't the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure if they qualify as a real football team this year, so
yeah,
might power rank them below the Clemson Tigers or the St. Louis Battlehawks at this point.
So I guess to steal from Gene here for a second, because Gene loves doing the either or. So let's do Colts or.
Okay.
So yeah, one game. We'll say neutral site. Who would you pick? The Colts or whoever?
Okay.
Let's go Colts, Steelers.
You know what? I would take the Colts.
Okay, I would take the Colts as well. Colts, Broncos.
You know what? That's tough. That really is tough because I like the Colts' offensive weapons better.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the Broncos' defense with Nick Bonito and Patrick Surtain is absurd. I would probably take Denver.
I would take Denver as well. Let's go Colts, Chargers.
Everybody fully healthy? I'd probably have to take the Chargers.
Yeah, if the game's tomorrow, I would take the Colts because Chargers are kind of banged up. But yeah, all things considered, I would take the Chargers.
Yeah, this version of the Chargers, yeah, I'd take the Colts.
Yeah.
Healthy Chargers, yeah, I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah. Colts, Bills.
Bills.
I would take the Bills. Then I guess the last. Well, okay, 2 more teams. Colts, Patriots.
Interesting. Probably, you know what makes me skeptical and what makes this challenging is Drake May is on the Patriots, and I really like him.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, yeah, I think I'll go Patriots.
I mean, I'm taking the Patriots. Drake May is MVP to me, but
not only just him. Shout out Christian Gonzalez, man.
Yeah,
Gonzo's locked down too.
Yep.
And they have a good line. They have a good line to give that. Yeah, they can slow down the run game, and they have Gonzo to lock down the back end. That'd be a tough matchup for the Colts.
Don't they play at some point this year?
I think so.
Let me double check that.
Yeah, Diggs looked really good against the Bills.
Yeah, Colts Patriots don't play. Yeah, Diggs have had a wide receiver 1 performance for sure. And then finally, Colts Jags.
Yeah, I'll take the Colts.
Okay. So yeah, the Colts in a weird AFC, they're one of the top teams, but you wouldn't call them the favorites, obviously, because they still have some things to prove, but they seem to be on the right track.
And I just want to say, I love seasons like this where it's just really random and you don't know what's going to happen next. It's great.
Yeah. Let's see. And we do have a Thursday night game to get into, but got a couple minutes. I want to get into Bucs Seahawks. Was that game of the year? And I know a lot of people were skeptical on Darnold with the Seahawks. I think Baker with the Bucs. I think people are definitely like the pairing of the two. But when you look at that game, could you see Darnold leading the Seahawks to a playoff spot?
To a playoff spot? Absolutely. Don't know what they're doing in the playoffs, but if there's one constant that's going to turn out very nicely for them, the Darnold to Jackson Smith and Jigba connection is already probably one of the best ones in the league. It's arguably the best connection in the league so far. Those two have been on the same page, and they've been elite together. So when you have a connection like those two have had, as long as it sticks throughout the year, yeah, I think that alone, and plus they've had a solid run game to support that. Yeah, I think this is a playoff team. I think this is at least a wild card team, and obviously this team also still has a real chance to take the division in a tough West. So yeah, this is a playoff team to me, no doubt.
Yeah. Side question: is the NFC West the best division in football?
You know what? That's tough. That is a tough one, but it might be. I really still like the NFC North as maybe the toughest division in football still. Our worst team with the 2-2 Bears. Obviously, the Cardinals are now 2-3, but I think you can make a real argument for the NFC West, but I still think the NFC North definitely is still in the running for that.
Game of the year so far with Dallas and Green Bay coming in second. Yeah. Dallas Green Bay obviously was a really good game. 49ers Rams was a good game as well. Yeah. Okay. John says NFC North by a bit, tad bit. I just thought about that because I think the NFC West, with the 49ers doing it with their own injury problems and seemingly holding it together with smoke and mirrors, the Rams as that team that a lot of people thought were Super Bowl contenders and still having a good year, and then the Seahawks having the year that they're having. Yeah, the Cardinals do bring it down a little bit, but there are some competitive divisions in the league, so just want to see where your head was at.
I'll say it
probably is the North or the West.
Say it's either the North or the West. Either one could produce like 3 playoff teams this year, and I wouldn't be surprised.
4 weeks could say maybe. I mean, the AFC West has the makings of it with the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers. If the Chargers can get
a healthy running back.
Yeah, because now you have to throw Hampton on top of the Alt and the Slater injuries. Like, it's a war of attrition, and right now the Chargers are starting to slip a little bit in that one.
Also, I want to say something about the Eagles. Them clearing Nakobe Dean for this week is bold. Let's give the guy with the surgically repaired knees first game back being MetLife on that turf.
Yeah.
I get that is a hell of a way to see. Hey, well, we're gonna see if your knee's good or not. So welcome back, Nakobe Dean. I hope you have a great game. But man, you couldn't have asked for a more ironic place to bring him back, with that being the turf monster. So
yeah, that's probably not the week I would bring him back with the history of that stadium. But obviously you don't want to hope anything happens to him. Hopefully he can get through the game. But I'm glad you brought the Eagles. I wasn't the last one for it. Looking forward to Thursday night. Eagles and Bills both lose their first game of the season. Looking at the two of them, who are you more worried about?
Eagles.
Okay.
The Eagles are just interesting to me, right? Because they just seem slightly dysfunctional. Like they don't know what they want to do. Mm-hmm. Like they want to be a run-first team, but then Saquon only runs the ball 6 times. They got A.J. Brown, putting out cryptic messages on social media. Mm-hmm. So, is he really happy? It's one of those things where I think Philadelphia will end up being ultimately fine. But that being said, that just seems to have, a lot more potential to, combust just due to all the, dynamics that we're seeing between both teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like the Eagles are kind of searching for answers and what team they want to be. And I feel like what the Bills are. They use James Cook. You have Josh Allen's dual threat ability. And then defensively, Ed Oliver, Milano, those guys really, set the tone on that side of the ball. And, with the Patriots, they did go up against Buffalo where Ed Oliver didn't play and Milano got hurt in the first half. So we don't know how the game would have played out if those two were on the field. But like I said, we know who the Bills are. And I think the Eagles aren't necessarily sure who the Eagles are this season. So I would agree. Probably more concerned about the Eagles, but I think they're both obviously going to be, playoff teams and all that. Patula getting fired. Well, I mean, hey, Eagles fans probably don't want to wait till the end of the year. He's the guy who definitely needs an offensive explosion badly. But all right, so now Thursday Night Football, which once again Gene loves doing this. Tickets as low as $119 to go, watch the home team Giants and the Eagles. Obviously, the rivalry is driving those prices. The Eagles are a 7.5-point favorite according to ESPN Bet. The Giants are coming off of the loss to the Saints, so the Jackson Dart experience has their first face of adversity. How do they come back from that loss? And the Eagles coming back from the Broncos loss. Who wins this one? You want to throw a score prediction or go against the line or whatever? How do you see this game playing out tonight?
With that game that logic tells you one thing, but your gut is telling you something else. That feels like with this game tonight, right? Okay. Your mind just goes, Eagles should win this one. Really not a problem. This Giants team just put up 14 and lost to the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
They give 28 to the Saints. So it's one of those things where you're just kind of like, this should be an easy Eagles win. But something is telling me that even with, how banged up the Giants are, for some reason I feel like that this is going to be a close game, which at that point, anything is possible. I'll still pick the Eagles to win because I don't think the Giants have enough. But yeah, I'm gonna go with 20-16, the final score.
Okay, so you have the Giants covering, and I guess to John's point, the injuries, you got Anthony Johnson, Jameis Winston, coach's decision. Darius Slayton's out, Evan Neal's out, James Hudson's out, Elijah Garcia, Flanagan Files, Sways Bowman. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is on IR from a couple of weeks ago. Like, yeah, that's a lengthy list there. I think Philadelphia, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Carter is out, and Grant Calcaterra.
I can't even imagine the reaction from Eagles fans if they lose this game.
And if the Phillies lose tonight, like, yeah, it would be brutal. But I'm agree with you. Like, I feel like the Eagles win this one. I actually think, call me crazy, I think they cover. I think I kind of want to go with, AJ Brown, couple of touchdown passes. I think Hurts, looking good at the quarterback position. I'm more interested to see, can Barkley get going on the ground? I think that's more important to the Eagles going forward. But I'll take the Eagles tonight, and I'll say they win. I'll go 27-17.
I don't think it's crazy to think that they'll cover. Like, that's what my mind's telling me, that they should cover. But that being said, like I said, my gut's telling me that something maybe a little crazy might happen tonight. Like, the Giants are going to make a game out of this.
No, that's fair.
And yeah. Got it back going with friend. You're at a really good pace. I think he's not even on pace for 1,000 right now.
Right.
I'm sure he'll have that breakout game and get over 1,000 at least, but that's looking real good right now.
But we've got about 3-4 minutes before the game kicks off, so we'll probably end it there. Give you all an opportunity to go sit in front of your TV and get ready for the kickoff. Brett, you want to let them know what they can look forward to later on tonight?
Yes, on the And One podcast, Mo and I will be finishing our tier rankings of every single starting guard now in the NBA. 2 weeks ago we did centers. Last week we did forwards. This week we're doing guards. We're using the ESPN depth chart to figure out our guards. So yeah, I'm gonna be looking forward to that. And next week we'll be doing predictions for the season, which starts the week after. So it's going to be exciting.
This is the question that everybody's wondering. I think no. Never a good thing when, North Carolina's coming out like, we have confidence in Belichick. And then Belichick's like, I'm committed to being here. That screams like one more of these losses and we're just going to cut bait with you. And I guess the only 2 wins have been FCS schools. He hasn't beaten an FBS school yet. That's not a good look. Hulu pulls the documentary. Like, it's not going Belichick's way right now.
See, that sucks, because this would have been, I think this would have made an even more interesting documentary than them dominating.
I thought so too, but I don't know. But yeah, so I will be back on here tomorrow with Jory and Key, Passion and Precision. So make sure you tune into that. And you got coffee and sports in the morning. Get your day started. I did see that. Yeah. He's like negotiating buyout or whatever. Or I don't know. It's a mess. It was kind of the worry you had when he went down there. If he didn't get success early, like, is he going to really want to go through the whole grind of the college experience of the recruiting and all this and all that? Like, he's 70-some years old. Like, he's probably gonna hang it up. But yeah. So look, make sure you come back in a little bit for and one to check out Brett and Mo. And like I said, Passion and Precision tomorrow. Yeah, Copy and Sports in the morning. So make sure you like, subscribe, follow Wire to Wire Network. That way you'll know when we go live and you can join the chat and, have some fun with the other creators here on the network. So with that, enjoy the game. Enjoy the baseball playoffs. Enjoy the WNBA finals as long as they last. Maybe just one more game because Asia Wilson is a beast. And NBA preseason. Enjoy it all. We'll be back next week. Obviously, talk more NFL. So we're out of here. Good night. See you next week.